Tae-suk is a lonesome young man who breaks into vacant houses to stay for a night. He is an expert at his job and has never been caught. He has a simple but elaborate plan that he uses to choose the houses he wants to break into. Tae-suk pastes fake restaurant flyers on people's front doors and returns the next day to see if the flyers are still around. If they're missing, that means the homeowner is still inside the house. But if the flyers are present, he skillfully picks the locks and goes inside. In one of such expeditions, he breaks into a family's apartment and finds out they have gone on vacation. Tae-suk is not a thief. He has never stolen things from the houses he has broken into. Instead, he cleans himself up, does a homeowner's laundry, repairs all the electronics that are broken, and takes care of the house as his own. He doesn't forget to click pictures of the family photos as a souvenir. Tae-suk has grown so skilled in what he does that he can escape even if the family returns home while he is inside. One day he breaks into a mansion that belongs to a businessman named Min Jae-ya. Min Jae-ya has a wife named Sun-hwa, who used to be a model but gave up her career after marriage. Min Jae-ya is abusive to his wife, beating her up frequently. He assaults her sexually every night, but Sun-hwa is too scared to stand up for herself. Tae-suk thinks that since the flyer is still in the front gate, no one has returned home. What he doesn't know is that Sun-hwa is in the house, crying because her husband beat her up again. Sun-hwa sees the intruder, but doesn't call the police. She simply hides and watches him do what he normally does. He goes through nude pictures of Sun-hwa that were taken when she was still a model. The house phone rings and plays a voicemail from Min Jae-ya, threatening his wife to pick up the phone. Yet Tae-suk doesn't realize that she is in the house. He takes a picture of himself with Sun-hwa's picture on the wall. Following that, he cooks for himself and eats, all while Sun-hwa silently watches him from nearby. He collects the clothes lying all around the house and washes them thoroughly. While hanging them to dry, he sees a golf practice net that belongs to Min Jae-ya. He uses it and plays golf for a long time. Later, he takes a bath, fixes a broken weighing machine, and is about to go to sleep when suddenly he sees Sun-hwa watching him. The two do not share words and silently stare at each other. Tae-suk quickly packs up his belongings and is about to leave when Min Jae-yu calls again. In the voicemail, he asks Sun-hwa to talk to him and threatens to take action if she doesn't. Tae-suk leaves, but he cannot get the thought of Sun-hwa out of his head. He rests by the side of the road and considers returning to the house. He does so and finds Sun-hwa crying in the bathtub. Without saying anything, he lays down clothes for her to change into when she gets out. Sun-hwa realizes he has returned, but doesn't react to his presence. They pass each other a billiard ball from one room to the other. A while later, Min Jae-ya returns home and yells at Sun-hwa for leaving the door open. He also tries to forcefully kiss her. Tae-suk watches them from the back porch and attracts Min Jae-yu's attention by playing golf. When Min Jae-yu confronts the intruder, he is hit with the balls and injured severely. Tae-suk simply goes outside and gets on his bike as Sun-hwa follows behind him. The two drive away and start living together. Sun-hwa joins Tae-suk and goes to neighborhoods and helps him paste the flyers. Weirdly enough, Tae-suk drills a hole in a billiard ball, puts a string through it, and ties it to the bark of a tree to practice golf. He practices for hours as Sun-hwa waits for him nearby. At night, they break into a photographer's house and find several nude pictures of models. Sun-hwa's picture is also one of them. She tears her picture into several squares and rejoins them differently, portraying the change she has brought upon herself. Following that, Tae-suk repairs a broken clock, while she cleans the owner's dirty laundry. He then cooks for Sun-hwa, and she thoroughly enjoys the meal. At last, they take pictures with the photos around the house and leave. The two have not spoken a word to each other, but by now, they have an intimate understanding between them. When Sun-hwa wants him to stop practicing golf, she simply stands in front of him, not letting him continue. That night, they enter a house that belongs to a boxer. Through the voice note left on the phone, they find out the boxer and his wife have gone to Hawaii on vacation. As usual, they cook, clean, and repair the broken stuff. Tae-suk even cuts Sun-hwa's hair on her nonverbal request. They change into the house owner's pajamas and drink. However, this time they get drunk and fall asleep together in the bed. When the owners return after a few hours, they are furious to see strangers on their bed wearing their clothes. The boxer beats Tae-suk brutally and kicks them out. The pair then go to a convenience store and share a cup of instant ramen. As Sun-hwa eats, Tae-suk ties the billiard ball to a tree and practices golf, yet again. This time the ball is tied loosely, so it flies off and hits a woman who is driving past in her car. They run to see what happened to discover a guy crying over the woman's death. Tae-suk is guilt-ridden after the incident. He sits by the side of the road crying as Sun-hwa comforts him. The next day, they go to a neighborhood with traditional Korean houses to paste the flyers. At night, they return to the place and break into the house with the flyers still on the door. They sit on the sofa and stay there for a long time without talking. After a while, Tae-suk moves closer and the two finally kiss. The following day, they go to an old apartment complex in the slums. They enter into one of the apartments and are immediately blasted with a foul smell. On checking, they find an old man's decaying dead body lying on the ground. The two are shocked, but instead of calling the police, they simply rob up the body and give him a proper burial. The next day, the man's son and daughter-in-law arrive at the house looking for him. They are shocked to see two strangers walking around the house. The police are called and the pair are arrested for breaking it. The dead man's body is found and the couple are suspected of killing him. At the police station, an officer questions them, but the two of them refuse to speak. They assume that Tae-suk had kidnapped Sun-hwa and is forcing her to be with him. When Sun-hwa is questioned, she neither denies nor affirms the claim. The police also find the camera with the pictures they have taken in several houses and assume that they are thieves. However, on checking the records and informing the owners, they figure that Spare didn't steal anything. The post-mortem results of the dead man also arrives, which clears them with the fact that he died of lung cancer. Because of the lack of proper evidence, Main Jae-yu is called so he can take his wife back, while Tae-suk is given a short sentence for trespassing on private property. Sun-hwa goes back home and is more miserable than before. Main Jae-yu tries to reason with her, saying that he sent money to her parents and also kept her favorite plant alive, but she doesn't respond. A furious Main Jae-yu calls the police inspector assigned to the case and bribes him. He wants the policeman to hand Tae-suk over to him for an hour to take revenge. They meet under a bridge, where Main Jae-yu hits Tae-suk with billiard balls, as he had done to him. Tae-suk falls to the ground in pain, but the policeman doesn't stop Main Jae-yu. All of a sudden, he attacks Main Jae-yu and has to be stopped. Following the encounter, Tae-suk is imprisoned. He shares a cell with 3 other inmates who are amused by his weird behavior. He practices golf with an imaginary golf club and ball. He does it for hours and seems to enjoy it as well. To mess with him, one inmate pretends to steal the imaginary ball. The ensuing fight between him and Tae-suk causes them to be separated and put into different rooms. Tae-suk is brought into solitary confinement, where he can stay without people bothering him. With all the time on his hands, he practices stealth and concealment. With time, he gets even better at it and manages to move around in a tiny room without making a single noise. Somewhere else, Main Jae-yu continues to assault Sun-hwa, forcing her into sexual intercourse. But after staying with Tae-suk, Sun-hwa has gained enough courage to stand up for herself. When he tries to force her into doing something that she doesn't want to do, she slaps Main Jae-yu on the face and storms off. In the meantime, Tae-suk starts to trouble the policeman by staying at his site, even when he is in a tiny room. Sometimes he hides closer to the wall so they cannot see him from the door, while other times, he hangs to the ventilation high up in the wall, making them think he has run away. Every time he pulls such tricks, the men beat him up, but he doesn't stop. Sun-hwa misses him dearly. She fixes things around the house and washes the laundry with her hands, just like he used to. One day, she even goes to the traditional Korean house that they once broke into. The house owners are confused, but they let her sleep on the sofa anyway. After a nap, she leaves without saying a word. Tae-suk develops phenomenal concealment skills by then. He is so good at what he does that a policeman who comes into his room cannot even see him. He walks behind the man with preciseness, making him think Tae-suk has run away, until he notices the shadow. Because of Sun-hwa's behavior, Main Jae-yu realizes she is waiting for Tae-suk to be released from prison. At first, he plans to move houses so Tae-suk wouldn't be able to find them, but running always seems cowardly to him. He decides to stay in the house and kill Tae-suk if he ever returns. One day, a policeman doing his daily rounds looks into Tae-suk's room and sees him missing as usual. Fed up with his behavior, he goes inside the room, but doesn't see him at all. He is pushed around by what seems like a mysterious force. What he doesn't know is that Tae-suk was behind him, hiding in plain sight. Following that, Tae-suk is finally let out of prison. To test his skills, he goes to places that he has broken into before, but this time he breaks in even when the owners are present. He goes to the boxer's house, the traditional house, and even the house of the photographer. All of the owners seem to instinctively feel his presence, but cannot find him. Finally, at night, he enters Main Jae-yu's house. At first, the man feels his presence and goes out looking for him with a golf club. When he doesn't find anyone, he tells Sun-hwa to go to sleep. and falls asleep himself. Sunwoo knows Tae-suk enough to know that he is present somewhere near. She comes outside and looks into a mirror to see him behind her. Seconds later, Ming Jae-yu returns to the room, but by then, Tae-suk is already out of sight. Sunwoo speaks for the first time and says, "I love you." Ming Jae-yu thinks she is talking to him, but in reality, she is talking to Tae-suk over his shoulder. Ming Jae-yu hugs her and she kisses Tae-suk, who is standing right behind him. The following day, she cooks a meal for them and is in a good mood. Ming Jae-yu even asks her to stop smiling quite a few times. As he eats breakfast, Tae-suk, standing right behind him, also eats in silence. After Ming Jae-yu leaves, the couple is alone to do whatever they please. The movie ends as Tae-suk playfully hides behind Sunwoo, but she finds him.